The Arms Amendment Bill 2019. Actually, I'm going to read about Arms Act 1959. So, what are the content of this article which I have collected through various sources? I'm going to read it, and along with me, you will certainly enjoy this lecture if you want to know about the Arms Act 1959. Okay, so I'm going to read it through the various headings, that is introduction, history of Arms Act, provisions of licenses, types of arms, prohibitions, deposition of unlawful arms, relevant cases, laws in context of the Arms Act. Okay, right to possess arms and ammunition as a fundamental right under Article 29. Conscious possession as a core ingredient to establish guilt for an offense punishable under Section 25 of the Arms Act. Okay, so Section 25 of this act is very important. Several times if you go through the Google and read Arms Act, then you find first of this important section, Section 25, which says conscious possession as a core ingredient to establish guilt for an offense punishable under Section 25 of the Arms Act. Okay, penalties and offenses, conclusion, reference. Okay, the Arms Act 1959 was enacted by the Indian Parliament with the sole purpose of consolidating and amending the laws relating to arms and ammunition. This was the need of the hour in order to curb the menace caused by individuals holding illegal weapons, which could be potentially used to perpetrate violence in the society through criminal activities. So, this Arms Act mainly passed only to curb crime in our society, and the criminals, if have the weapons of technology, then definitely they can crime in organized way. That's why this Arms Act has been passed. The act aims to be extensive as possible to cover all aspects relating to the acquisition, possession, manufacture, sale, import, export and transport of the arms and ammunition as stated explicitly in Chapter 2 of the same. Further, Chapter 4 of the Act elaborates upon the powers and procedures exercisable by the government and other officials in regulating to use. Okay, Chapter 4 of the Act elaborates upon the powers and procedures exercisable by the government and other officials in the regulating the use and possession of the arms and ammunition in India, including provisions for arrest, search, seizure and detention orders. What is the history of the Arms Act? The very first instance involving the use of guns by the Indian people, which caused alarm among the then individuals in power, the British, was the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. Okay, this unsettling event during colonial times involved the introduction of the infamous Enfield rifle by the British for use by the Indian sepoys. Indian sepoy means constable. In the army it is the sipahi. In order to use the rifle, however, the sepoys had to bite off the lubricated cartridges, which were greased with a mixture of pig and cow lard. This was a tactic to insult the religious sentiments of the Muslims and Hindus respectively and caused mass violence and discontent among the Indian sepoys. Actually, this article is so good, that's why I'm not going to explain too much. So I'm reading it, just enjoying it you. Okay, this gave momentum to sepoys to unite and cause a violent uprising against the British officials. The British, on realizing the rapidity with which the individuals were able to put their differences aside and join hands to fight against their oppression, decided that the only way to prevent any future mass uprising against them was to establish an act that restricted the Indians from the possessing any arms. This gave rise to the Indian Arms Act 1878. According to this act, According to this act, only those Indians who had prior permission or a proper license were allowed to possess arms. So the whole concept of this act arises after the 1857 revolt done by the mutiny, done by the sepoys of the army. Okay. Then Indian Arms Act 1878 passed. This act further regulated the manufacture, sale, possession and carrying of firearms and was implemented during the tenure of the Viceroy of India, Lord Lytton. It is one of the most important questions as well for the general knowledge. When this act was passed, who was the Viceroy of India? It is Lord Lytton. So what is the firearm? If the word fire is used with the arm, what does it mean? Actually, just take an example of a gun, a pistol which fires a bullet. Is there any fire in that? Yes, definitely there's a fire. Fire means energy. That energy is used like a third law of Newton. Every action has its own reaction. So on the basis of this law, that bullet has been fired with full energy through the gun. So that bullet, when travels with too much speed, it will heat it up through the environment along with that bang which has been done by that gun machine on the bullet. Okay. So fire is included in this all the process. Fire means that energy that heated that particular bullet. Okay. So that speed, that hammering of the gun on the bullet and the friction of the environment creates an energy like fire. That's why it is called firearms. The hypocrisy of this act was evident as the Europeans were conveniently exempted from the provision. Okay, when that particular act was passed, then it was said that Europeans are not needed to take any license, just carry that gun. Okay, there's no need to have a license for the Europeans. Of the same, while the strict penalties and punishment were put forward for Indians if they were found owning any type of weapon. After independence, the government of India passed a new Indian Arms Act 1959, which recognized the necessity for the certain law-abiding citizens to possess and use firearms for the purpose of sports, crop protection and self-defense. Okay, why the government has passed 1959 Act? For the sport, crop protection. Crop means a farmer's duty is that to save its crop from the animals, from so many wild animals that destroys the whole farmer's agriculture. So, and self-defense, this act was followed by the Arms Rule 1962 as well. So the Arms Rule 1962 is different and Arms Act 1959 is different. What are the provisions for license? The process of obtaining an arms license is not an easy task. Unlike the United States of America, where the right to bear arms is constitutionally recognized, the Indian firearms laws are one of the strictest in the world. Okay, obtaining a license to possess a firearm can take a minimum of 1 whole year. Okay, 1 whole year, due to number of procedures that one has to undergo in order to satisfy the authorities that she is eligible to possess a firearm. Okay, it is about 1 year has been gone through if you want to have a license to have an arm. So one of the strictest law to have a license for firearm in our country, it is India. What is section 3? Section 3 of the Act states that only those individuals who possess a valid license issued in accordance with the provisions of the Act are entitled to possess any firearm or ammunition. The 1959 Act permits individuals to possess a maximum of 3 firearms. The 1959 Act permits individuals to possess a maximum of 3 firearms. Okay, the excess, if any, is to be deposited at the nearest police station within 90 days of the commencement of the act. Okay, if an individual has more than 3 weapons, then the weapons which is more than 3 has to be submitted nearest police station within 90 days of the commencement of the act. But now the rules has been changed. Just go ahead and we will discuss it about. Applications for the grant of an arms license are required to be made to the appropriate licensing authority in the proper form with the required documents and fee. The minimum age which an individual needs to be in order to be eligible to possess a firearm is 21 years. Okay, not the 18 years. It is the 21 year. In the case of junior target shooter, however, an individual of 16 years of age is allowed to possess a firearm. If a person is junior target shooter, then that individual, if 16 years old, then can possess a firearm. An individual's application for a license must be accompanied by documents such as identity proof, address proof, proof of age and education, 4 passport size photographs, income tax returns for the last 3 years, and a character certificate as well as physical and mental health certificates. For a self-defense license, it is a mandatory that individual proves that he she faces an impending threat to life. This can, however, include the threat of wild animals as well. If you applied for a license on the basis of the self-defense, then you have to prove that there's a threat of your life. Okay. Following the application, the police carries out a background check of the individual spanning a time period of 2 months. Okay, police has 2 months to investigate the background of that individual who has applied for the license, which consists of an interview period of the individual's family and neighbors. Okay, there is an interview for the individual's family and neighbor in order to assess her nature, whether she is aggressive or suppressive, has any criminal history of the domestic violence or aggression, etc. Okay, the reports made by the police are stored with the police criminal branch of the National Crime Record Bureau. Okay, and finally the license authorities interview the applicant and decide whether they want to grant or reject the application for the license. Okay, if the license is granted, the applicant is mandatorily made to participate in an arms handling course to ensure she handles the firearms in safe and responsible manner. Arms license are valid for a period of 3 years. The license is valid for only 3 years, and when you are going to apply about it, then it takes more than 1 year. Okay, so much strictness to pass the license. It is also important for us, because in the country like us, where the very less licenses has been issued, so many heated events has been passed in our last 50-60 years of independence. You know that there is a many oppression, there is a many rights, there is many heated past we have seen. So the central government has the finally say on the confiscation of license and the weapons of individual at any point of time. Okay, after passing a license, central government also have the right to confiscation. Confiscation means taking back of your license at any time when central government feels that there is a no need or there is a harm of your license. Okay, they also hold the monopoly over the manufacture, import, export and sale of such arms and ammunition. So only central government has power to manufacture, import, export and sale of such arms and ammunition, not the state governments. Okay. The licensing authority has the power to deny an individual the license to possess arms under the following condition. This is section 14 of the act. Section 14 of the act says about the powers of the licensing authority to deny an individual the license. On which grounds? If the individual is already prohibited under the provision of this act or under any other law currently enforced from possessing any arms and ammunition, or if the individual is found to be of unsound mind or age or minority. So these are the conditions where the licensing authority can deny the license. It is given under section 14 of the act. What are the arms, types of the arms? It is given under section 2. The firearms which an individual can possess into two main categories: prohibited bores (PB), which can be used only by the army. PB is the weapons which can be used by the army or central paramilitary forces. Central paramilitary forces means CRPF like forces, or ITBP kind of forces are central paramilitary forces. Okay, let me know that what is the authority which deals with central paramilitary forces, whether it is CRPF or ITBP. It is the Home Ministry, not the Defense Ministry. Okay, our Army, Navy and Air Force comes under the Defense Ministry, but the central paramilitary forces is the part of Home Ministry of the center or the state police. Okay, PB can be held by state police as well. Non-prohibited bores and PB which can be used by any individual who hold the valid arms license. The primary basis of the distinction between the two is on the measurement of the bore, which is the thickness or diameter of the bullet. So it is but obvious that a person which is individual is not allowed to have a AK-47 kind of guns or a guns which used by the snipers. So very ordinary guns can be used by an individual. Okay, this is the all about. The 2008 Mumbai terror attacks saw a change in the gun ownership norms. Prior to the attack, prohibited bore firearms were allowed to be used by both defense forces personnel and family heirlooms. Okay, family members of the personnel also can be used prohibited bore under certain circumstances. Post the attacks, however, only those individuals who face serious and imminent threat to their own person or family members as a result of being resident of terrorist prone areas or are potential targets of the terrorist as a result of the nature of the jobs are allowed to possess PB firearms. The PB licenses can only be granted by the central government. Okay, so after that we will read it again in the next lecture. Otherwise this lecture is very lengthy. Okay.